Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Morning Market Movers, where we do live analysis for day trading and take a look at hotspots for the markets today, April 21st, Thursday, April 21st. My name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. Joining me, Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple. Uh, what are we looking at today? We're waiting to hear the IMF. We've got the G20 group inside the IMF meeting today, so we're going to be hearing from all of the central banks. We've got Powell from the Fed. We've got Lagarde from the ECB, and we've got the Bank of England, and I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. Yeah, it'll come back to me in a second.
Bailey?
Bailey from the
Bailey.
Bank of England. Thank you. I need more coffee this morning. So we're going to be hearing a lot about the global economy, what the central banks are looking at. That's going to be happening later this morning. In the meantime, right now, when you look at FX markets, there's not a lot going on there. We are seeing a little bit of movement in commodities, and we're looking at a green open in equities. We are in earnings season. We're seeing the airline stocks take off. American announced stocks jumping higher. People are, they're expecting, and if you've been to an airport recently, it's crazy. They are jam-packed, because I traveled recently. I couldn't believe how many people were in the airport. Also, Tesla just announced their earnings. That stock is punching higher as they beat on both top and bottom line. So we are going to take a look at equities. We are going to take a look at some commodities. We'll take a look at charts and see what we got up for today as we wait to hear from all these central bankers who are going to be debating the global markets. Before I flip it over to Brian, I do need to share this disclaimer that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. So, Brian, I'm going to go ahead and just toss it over. Let's take a look at some of the headlines, and we could take a look at
Yeah.
some of the charts.
Yeah, I was looking at Tesla real quick because you mentioned that it was up big, and I saw it. And you know, a lot of times we talk about this, and I'll say a chart is a chart is a chart. And here's Tesla. I mean, it's you guys can look at it. We drew this actually last week, talking about how we had a base and a bottom here that was confirmed a few times. We always talk about how you tend to see prices push into zones before the news comes out. There's that same drawing. Here's the news yesterday. Here's yesterday's trading day. It drove it right down into the zone and ended sitting right in that zone. And then the earnings came out, and now it's up $100. So to say that it depends on what chart you're looking at, or it depends on what time frame, is just not true. I mean, this is the exact strategy we talk about. It happened for oil, the oil inventory report yesterday. But I mean, talk about an extreme example. Same area, same support from buyers, and bam, look at that. Drove it down yesterday into earnings, and then $100 move already. So pretty crazy stuff. As far as globally right now on the currency front, the only thing moving is the euro dollar. There was some comments, and again, we kind of saw this yesterday, talking about how the summer is when they could hike it. We did get actually a comment about it. It could be possibly July, but it depend on the data. Fragmentation, and again, there's no reason why we can't cut it. And one of these things is, originally everybody thought the Ukraine scenario would be done quickly. It's not, but inflation is now at 7.4% in the European Union, so it's starting to cause major problems there. Again, with things that are going on with elections and everything else, there's a lot going on, right? There's a lot going on. So that's one of the reasons why we're moving it. Actually, it's funny. There's a really solid case for a 0.5. Yes, Daily, there was a really solid case last time too. Not sure.
So they are going to be talking. It's funny, is Brandon and I were talking about this earlier, because they're talking global. The question is, are they going to be talking about their own countries as well, or are you going to only hear? And it just sounds like the Fed is really going to be out there today. I think
this was yesterday. This came out
that was yesterday.
Afternoon.
Yeah, they're all out there talking 50-50-50. I think now, even with the war going on, they're gonna go, ooh, we're gonna do 50. Even though now people are like 75.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was, I brought it up before. If they have to go to point 0.5 on number 2, does that mean they got it wrong the first time? I think at this point they're all kind of backtracking and realizing that they screwed up the first time. Um, I think we're going to hear a lot about this in 6 months from now for the election. Because I think they've handled it completely wrong. There's another piece down here. They just talked about how um, where is it? Basically, the pro jobs policy is what we have right now, and it's interesting. They call raising interest rates a brute force hammer that sometimes break things. Is what I guess what Powell said, or actually, Waller said that. It's a tricky road that we're on. What happens to the U.S. job market, where unemployment currently stands at an ultra low 3.6%? Okay, so the labor market was supposedly tight. That's why we didn't do it last time. Inflation was transitory. They've literally failed again, failed again, failed again, failed again. So the confidence of the Fed is very, very low right now. Um, and again, I think the U.S. needs to prepare for a kind of a clean sweep of Fed governors as well. So, yeah, it's one of those scenarios that they've let get out of hand, and they're worried about. It's like, how do you say, we're worried about the economy? We're at ultra high inflation, 40 years. Again, low unemployment, which again is not an accurate number of things. Hourly earnings are not following, so inflation's getting out of control. And again, will they mention interest rates today? Yeah, I mean they're all at the same debate, whether it be Powell, Bailey, they're all at the same exact debate today. And if you look to see what they're talking about, it's a debate on the global economy. So they're talking about how do they handle this on a global level. We had G20 meetings yesterday. We had G7 meetings yesterday. Everybody has a G, just so you guys know. Japan basically was they brought it up. Suzuki actually talked and basically said that they didn't care. Nobody cared that the yen was deflating, and I can't find it. All right, right here. Let's see. Where is it? I had it in here. This is CNBC talking, and I don't necessarily trust the CNBC, but I don't know where it is right now. But basically, Suzuki talked, and they were like, "Yeah, we brought it up," and all they wanted to talk about was the global economy and Russia. That's it. That's all that there was. They didn't care about the rapid decline in the yen. They said they didn't care about currency swaps or currency ratios right now. Didn't even want to talk about it. So it just shows you that there is obviously politics behind it right now. Um, when Russia spoke yesterday, the U.S. and China walked out and wouldn't even listen to him. That was their form of protest. That we don't even care what he has to say. It's like, okay, I mean, like it or not, they are a large economical power as well. They do have a lot of natural resources that people like, and that's why Europe is potentially going into recession. So, is it right just to ignore what they have to say? I mean, it is. I don't know. It's going back to like, okay, you can protest, but if you're not part of the discussion, then you can't complain later on, and that's kind of I think they're making some major mistakes. But President Z actually did talk to as well. Um, and it's interesting. China is they've changed their policies, and again, this is important because, I believe I hate to say I don't want it to see it happen because I know a lot of the problems that they have. But right now, talking about the global economic recovery is fragile. We too see it. When you look at the language here and you dissect this, and this is really what a lot of people do with the Fed minutes, they take it and I dissect it and they look at it, hearing what they're saying. This is kind of goes back to like presidential elections. I can tell you right now, without a doubt, Maryland's governor will be in the running when it comes through. Why? He's been talking about Americans, not Marylanders, since the pandemic started, and about how he's the leader of the. I mean, you can start seeing the tones that they're talking about, right? China too is facing the same challenges. Even though we have a zero policy, with COVID and lockdowns, there's supply chains, there's equities. They're starting to talk about we on a global spectrum. The Chinese economy is resilient. Sound long-term trend has not changed. They're starting to talk about things on a global spectrum. They are not involved directly in the Ukrainian situation. Nobody's pointing fingers at them. They are ahead on the crypto front. They have talked OPEC into allowing purchases with Chinese currency and not dollars anymore. They're moving, and we're doing absolutely nothing about it. So interesting when this guy's starting to speak now, listening to how their tone has changed. Don't be surprised if we see some more kind of headlines and comments out of there. One other thing too I want to bring up as far as headlines go is CNBC is saying that the yen in the near future could weaken to 135. We already know that um, they're going to intervene at 130. So it is kind of an
Yeah.
interesting statement that they made that it could. And again, it's Wells Fargo. It's Wells Fargo's securities analyst. I work for Wells Fargo. They know when I was there, they knew almost zero about currencies. It was unbelievable how little they knew about currencies. No currency department. They weren't known for it. Unbelievable when they have a securities person, which is stocks, talking about currencies.
Looking for an overshoot. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I guess. Here was the trade that we set up yesterday. We talked about a nice little retracement coming back to the 61.8. It tagged it last night at about 10 o'clock at night. So quite a late, but again, remember, a lot of the trading or analysis that I do, guys, is set and forget. You don't have to be in front of it. It's kind of like an if this, then that. Here was the if this, then that. I mean, when we talked yesterday, we were sitting right around here. And what did it do? It found its own bottom. It came all the way back up. We had an area that was there was a drop, an area of basing, and a huge push, a confirmation, and it touched it at 10:30, 11 o'clock last night. Actually, it's about 11 o'clock last night. Went to its full fruition, and by the U.S. or by the European Open, it was out already. So again, this is why having charts that you can leave things on is great. But again, we're back down at we're 200 something points away, and even though this one, the 130 looks big, Wells Fargo is saying it's going to be all the way here. So, quite a ways away. Now, does that mean that it can't get up there? No. I mean, at this point, think about it. We just discussed, and as Todd mentioned, we think that the 0.5 is kind of what he's going to solidify the 0.5. Does the market believe it's going to be anything but 0.5 at this point? I really don't think so. I think the market believes it's 0.5. So if he solidifies it as 0.5, is it going to move at all? No. So it's nice to say in the near term that they're going to do that. So, Bullard wants a 0.75. It's not off the table, but I think too many people are so scared of being the person that crashed the economy. As I voted for the crash of the economy is what they're worried about. Not, they're not looking at the other way that we're at 40-year high inflation and everything else. So, yeah. So, and again, interesting to note about this one, when the news pops up over here, even though we're talking about the dollar yen, Europe is cheering on the Markin Le Pen clash. So remember, it was a lock for Macron forever, and now they're cheering the clash between the two. So that's a leftist to an extreme rightist, and again, they're celebrating that. So, overall today the VIX is down 1.8. I wouldn't say that it's really. It's down from where we closed, but it's not much lower than where we are, kind of where we were yesterday morning. Again, that's positive for the equities. With the news today, everything kind of on a global spectrum. It's not. It's not horrible. Like raising interest rates typically hurts everybody, but everybody's doing it, so it's not like it puts us at that much more of a negative scenario. ES in general. Yesterday we talked about some popping up and back and forth, and again, it was justified to go up. Again, we kind of took a big hit, and then we just literally grind our way back up again. So, here's a great example. 1, 2, 3. Actually, I guess you could say this is number 4. It's not going to hold. And what did it do? It went up at base, it pulled back, it grabbed that same level and went higher. So again, one of those Harry Potter trades. But as of today, I don't really think there's much. News-wise, I have the yellows on here to kind of see things. We really don't have much. If I filter this back down again, we have some speeches, but again, it's a global debate. Maybe he's going to deliver pre-recorded welcoming remarks, at the Volcker Institute. So obviously, this is pre-recorded. The speech is out. The market kind of already knows this. Maybe that's where he brings it up. But otherwise, that's it. We got some speeches. People are going to agree that, hey, listen, inflation's a problem. Energy, it's a problem. But it's not like OPEC's going to be like, hey, you know what? It's a problem. We'll take less money. It's okay. They've already said that they're not going to. And they were really pissed off about the strategic reserve. So news-wise today, there's not a lot. I think the European Union is one that is a pretty decent one to stay on. Everything else is flat globally. -8, 5, 8, -30, 11, -3 for the pound yen. So it's just not high. So again, indices today, they're all doing okay. We talked about retracements back again and ended up going lower and needing a little bit of the 61 yesterday for this to rally back up again. YM continuing to rally. We did have a zone that we talked about. It ended up going through in the middle of the night and kind of basing with it and pulling higher. I think 35,500, it's about 250 points away. I think it's on the radar today for the YM. Russell, again, continuing to grind. We still have a Harry Potter trade down south. When it gets there, will it eventually? Sure. I don't know when. I don't think it will today. I think today it's got a little bit more room to run also. And again, remember, the average Joe hasn't been able to trade Tesla yet. It's already up $100. So Apple also gapping higher, and Twitter. Again, Twitter's low, but we've had buyers kind of stabilize it there. So NQ looks like it's going to have a good day with a gap in Apple as well as a monstrous gap over here in Tesla. So NQ is right now the strongest, and I think it has the ability to go higher and run probably all the way back up again, back up into the 14,275-ish range. Oil is really kind of unchanged. And it's funny, the oil resunk itself. There was a again, if you guys are doing the 35 and 1, I don't know if you guys are or not. We drew this one yesterday for Chart School for my group afterwards. You can see that's what it did. It stabilized, it stopped, and immediately popped up, took us out 1 to 3, and then did its little reversal, and then now it's done anything. So again, another successful 35-1. That webinar is in the archives if you guys want to catch it. I think you find it on Nadex or Nadex's archive. So again, find that. Natural gas is actually up, but one of the things that we had talked about was the opportunity for a little bit of a Harry Potter trade, some of that profit taking. We ended up breaking through that level of basing in the overnight, and whether you took it on the way out or the retest of it, it still came down. And if I push this all the way across, you can see that it went below. So two different opportunities to get short, and now we're rallying up. We do have natural gas inventories today. Natural gas inventory should be interesting. It's expected to be a surplus of about 40 billion cubic units or British thermal units or whatever they're called. Again, we're trying to ship some, but there's contracts. We really can't ship that much. I'm actually curious to see today if they talk about the prices in energy going higher. Everybody puts a target right on oil. Natural gas is actually the linchpin for the European Union. It's not actually gasoline, it's natural gas. I'm wondering if they highlight natural gas and the shortages and how we can't replace it. If that's going to provide a boom today for this, it may, but that's really what the world is looking at as far as the European Union. It's not gasoline. They use a million times more public transportation than we use. It's actually natural gas for them. And then obviously we mentioned gold and silver. Gold and silver are both down from yesterday. We talked about taking both these lower. And again, the world is looking to crush inflation right now, so neither of those has a whole lot positive going for it. Cryptos though are taking off. Again, we're kind of like today's kind of like a risk on bet day again. Crypto's taking off. Bitcoin up 3%, Ethereum up 2.75%, Doji up 0.65, and bonds are even right now. Big rally up. Even bonds are trying to no. Look at us. Look at us. Look at us. And the dollar just kind of doing its thing here, dropping back a little bit. So not a horrible day in the market. Like I said, it's going to be some headlines. We can't predict those headlines. I'd like to see where the open is, drop it down to 15-minute charts and kind of see where things are pulling back to. They haven't started their kind of opening, pullback yet, but they're all kind of in that same spot. So, particularly like something like this, NQ. There's nothing over here, right? There's no sellers.
Yeah.
I guess maybe there could be a case made say, well, wait a second, there's sellers right here. There is, but where do they turn on? It's probably more profit taking cycling out of the European session, which started right here. And now you got to close your positions before the U.S. traders get online at 8:30. So that's probably more profit taking. There's not a whole lot over here. So I think again, it could be a continuation of what we've seen in the overnight. And again, it's not like Powell's going to be like, hey, the world, the United States is going to do this. It's not really the forum for it. And then going into tomorrow morning, that's where we have all the European data. So I'm curious to see where the euro and the pound kind of associate themselves. All the manufacturing and services data is tomorrow, as well as CAD retail sales. So there's a bunch of news tomorrow morning early. A way that you guys can play this one is after the Nadex contracts reset this afternoon at 5. You can get in there and start saying, okay, listen, the euro dollar has driven up really, really far. Any disappointing data here, this should help retrace this euro dollar down, particularly with the dollar right now being a little bit on the weaker side, right? Dollar's taking a little bit of a hit. Weak dollar today should be strong dollar tomorrow. It's strong euro right now with a whole lot of flash data that, again, expected to be lower than what it was before. So it could be a nice reversal opportunity for tomorrow morning with the euro dollar right now. So that's
All
it.
right. All right. With that, any questions for Nadex, please email us customerservice@nadex.com. Brian is also accessible. Feel free to email Brian at support@keeptradingsimple.com. My email is up there as well if you'd like to reach out to me. Really what we're looking at today, it's the equities. While we've got the federal bank or the global central banks meeting and talking at the IMF today, really it's very much earnings driven market. We're seeing that volatility over in the equities, and the earnings numbers are all coming out pretty strong. Other than streaming services, which boomed during the pandemic, everything else everyone's performing incredibly well. Everyone's beating their expectations, and we're seeing the equity markets rise. But we do have those central bank folks speaking later this morning, so who knows? I doubt it's going to be anything earth-shattering. I think, as Brian mentioned, those are all recorded, and people already know what they're going to say. So it's probably already priced into the market. With that, Brian and I will be back tomorrow morning, and we will be covering all that news that happens overnight. We'll be talking about that tomorrow morning. So please join us then. And until then, good luck in the markets, everyone.